So hey everybody, it's TR here and I'm back with a how-to video. Today, this is a how-to on Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I use to produce my videos. So hey everybody, it's TR here and I'm back with a how-to video. Today, this is a how-to on Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I use to produce my videos. So I've had a couple of inquiries about how I do the spinning world intro. They thought it was pretty cool. And so I'm going to take a few minutes today and show you how I put that together in Adobe's Premiere Pro.
So here's how I do the fly-ins I produce for my intro. And so what I've got here is I'm running Google Earth Pro, and I've set up a folder here called Saguaro. In the folder Saguaro here I've established some placemarks, and that's simply by just clicking on here, and then you can just give it a name, and then you can come over here and you can move it around, put it wherever, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's basically how that works. When I do a placemark, I establish the view that I want to see just by tweaking and tuning the viewports up here. You see, so follow me up here to the corner here, and you can adjust your tilt and the direction you're looking. You can zoom in by scrolling your mouse wheel. Anyway, so here's an example of test one. I'm going to just cancel that because I really don't want to put it there. I've already got that one. So once I've established the view of that particular placemark, and you can simply do that by coming in here and saying snapshot view. I'm not going to change this one because I already have it set. And then the effect of that is when you click on that label, it moves you to that viewpoint. And if I zoom out here a little bit, you can see I have this just off the screen, but to not show them, you just unclick the check mark here. As long as it's in the list here, it will record it as a part of the movie. Anyway, so let's finish that zoom. So Google Earth is stubborn, but I'm more stubborn. So if you watch up here, you'll see that my world is turning counterclockwise. And then it has an approximate scale, and I'll show you how I match the scales here in just a moment. So basically what I've done is I've come out here to the end of the rotation, and you can kind of see a little bit of Africa and India here, a little bit of Antarctica. And so what I've done here is on my start view, which I need to roll up just a touch more, and then I need to bring the scale up. And you can see I'm doing all that with just mouse clicks. The scroll window, scrolling the size is by doing the, if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse. But let's just go back to that start because that'll work just fine. And it actually, I think, needs to roll that way a little bit. Let's go back over here and take a look. Yeah, so we want to see it about looking like that. And then you can see here I'm going to snapshot the view. And then, but I don't want to see the label. I'm not even sure where it is. We're zoomed out here so far, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to just turn the label off. But it still makes that a stopping point in the video as you record it or as you prepare it. I am here ready to run now, so I've got all of these particular stops here, and you'll see them as I record this video here. So what I've gone to here is the top level folder, and then I'm going to come down here to this, and that's play the tour. And what it does is it starts this recording toolbar down here, and now you're going to see that as it moves through. Now it's on that roll left. This is the Arizona pause. Then I'm going to come in here to a Tucson pause. And then we're going to zip over to the Saguaro National Park Red Hills Visitor Center. And then we're going to zoom out a little bit to show you where I took the shots of the moonrise. And then we'll zoom up in onto the actual site itself. And that's basically all there is to it. Now once that's done, you can see that's 31 seconds. You have to save that tour. So give it a name you can remember. I'm going to just call this Zoom to Moonrise. Now I'm ready to create a movie. Come up here to Tools, go to Movie Maker. Now I prefer to use the AVI format. It seems to work a little better for me. And then so you have to come down here and you want to save. You want to use a saved tour. So Zoom to Moonrise is the one I just did. Smart about that. I do 60 frames a second. I'm going to save it in the folder. Now I have a way that I do this always. because consistency is a way to be able to find your dang content. Trust me. And then I'm just going to call this AVI Tours. And then I'm going to come in here and we're going to go into that folder. Now let's change the file name to Zoom to Moonrise and save it. Now we're ready to go. And basically, one thing I've also learned too is come over here and go back to your starting point. It saves you a few frames of editing you might have to do later. So now we're back at our starting point. Come down here on my toolbar and pick up the Movie Maker and then say Create Movie. And now we sit back and wait for it to download the images and do the zoom. It can take a while depending upon your internet speed. This one looks like it's going to take a while, so we'll come back in a minute. Okay, welcome back. We're 100% done recording the movie. It'll ask you if you want to watch it. You can if you'd like. It'll just bring it up in your whatever application you have as default movie viewer. I'm not going to do that. So I use Adobe's Premiere Pro to edit my video. I resisted using Adobe's subscription idea, but so I tried this Cyberlink, as you see here on my desktop, and it didn't work out that well. I wasn't real happy with the way it worked. It just had some limitations that bugged me, so I finally bit the bullet and went and got the Adobe subscription. I also have Adobe Lightroom for my photography practice, but that's a whole nother video in itself. So I don't want to give you the impression that I thought all of the Cyberlink stuff was poo-poo, because actually I'm using their screen recorder right now to record this video. I also use their audio director quite a bit when I need to edit audio files. So it was expensive just to get those two features, but it actually has worked out okay, and so I do use it for those purposes in itself. So here we are in Adobe Premiere Pro, and I need to go get those AVI tours, so I just come over here to my media browser. Over here off the screen, I should drag this over here and let you see it, is that I have a two-screen setup here, and so I use this screen for like command window. It's pretty common the way people do that nowadays with two screens, so I'm sure you've seen that before. Anyway, I'm going to run in here to the AVI tours, and the first thing I want to do is I want to produce this because this takes up a lot of space, and like anybody else on this volume itself, which is an SSD 512 gig, I've got about 68 gigs free. You don't want to fill your hard drives more than about 90%. 80% is optimal, and so I'm getting right on the edge there. And so oftentimes what I'll do to save space is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go over here and I'll show you that AVI tours. And let's get some details up here. And you can see that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 gigs. And I don't really need all of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come down in here and grab, let's see, first thing I need to do is import this into the project. Okay. Now, let me pull this over here so you can see. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab the first one, which is the it doesn't have a number appending the name. So that's the first video in the sequence. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to create a new sequence from it by dropping it on that folder. And we'll clear up a little mess here. So now you can see, here's my new sequence. And what I want to do then is I just want to grab the rest of these. I'm going to drag them in there. Let me move this out of the way here. So here they come. And then, so that'll put them in there in sequence. And then I'm using the plus key here real quick just to zoom up here to check the file numbers, make sure they're all in sequence, and they are. So that's good. Let's come back out here to a full screen. And now let's just produce this real quick. Control M is the command I use from Premiere Pro to get to the export settings. And I have my own preset. You can see here I have one YouTube i2540, but I use typically TR2540. And the output name here you can adjust. I'm not going to do that because this name will be fine with us. The only difference in my encoding versus the default is that I've gone to a variable bit rate in a 2-pass. I've set my target bit rate at 25 megabits, which gives pretty good quality on YouTube, and a compromise in the file size, because sometimes the file sizes can get pretty unwieldy if you're not careful. Then I set my maximum bit rate to 40. You can see here that the estimated file size is going to be 95 megabytes. That's down from 11 gigabytes. So it's a huge savings in disk space. And I find that working with this for the zoom-ins it's sixes. It doesn't really matter. You're not losing the quality or anything like that. AVI is just uncompressed video. Well, it's a different codec they use to encode the video. It's a whole nother video in itself. Alright, so I want to be able to go back to work and work in Adobe here while I'm encoding this, and so I'm just going to send it to the queue. Now included with the subscription is Adobe Media Encoder, and you can see it down here on the toolbar. It's starting up right now. It takes it just a second, and then it'll bring it up on the screen. I'll minimize so you can kind of see it there. And looks like it's right here, Zoom to Moonrise, and it's this one ready, and it's ready to go. Now you can set this up so you can encode at night. Oh man, this is a tool. It's really handy. I have it set to as soon as something hits the queue, wait 10 minutes and then start. It's just a default thing that I set up, but I want to run this one right now. So I'm going to just come down in here and highlight it and say go. And now it gives you a nice output preview here, and it shows you your progress. We don't care about that because I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to edit the segments that I've just recorded while that's running, so I can kind of keep multitasking here. That's the beauty of that tool from Adobe, the Media Encoder. So it's a must get, and again, it was free when I got my subscription to Premiere Pro. I'm back. While you were away, the media was encoding of the AVI tour that we had produced, and I've been actually working on the How to Spinning World intro. So as I'm recording these segments, then while I'm doing other work, I'm multitasking and putting together this actual video in itself. So back to the encoder real quick. Let's just take a look. Yeah, it's done. It took 7 minutes and 20 seconds to encode that. My system's pretty beefy. You can see here I've got a dual Xenon with 4 cores on each processor at almost 3 gigahertz, so that's not too bad. I'm running with 12 gigs of RAM. I also recently updated my video card, and I bought the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti, which has greatly improved encoding speeds because I use the CUDA encoding on Adobe, and you can see here I've got my renderer set to the CUDA, and so that will use my GPU to accelerate it. I haven't run one of these for a long time where I hadn't been running the CUDA, so I'm not sure how long the encoding might take, but it would probably be 2 to 3, maybe even 4 times longer. But that's the beauty of having this dual setup here, where you can actually set something to encode and then go back to work. I haven't noticed any real system resource problem, but that's the idea behind the encoder as well, is that while you're working on your system and you're encoding, you might be eating up all your CPU cycles. And so it's nice to be able to offload that to a different time, or even put it in the background if you're doing low-level editing work like this that doesn't have a lot of special effects or fades and all kinds of funky stuff in it. Another really nice thing is that Automatic will re-import the video that it just produced back into the project you produced it from. And so you can see here we have our Zoom to Moonrise MP4. Let's just review it real quick. Drag this out of the way. And just make sure that everything looks good on it. Yeah, I'm just going to scroll it here because I know it's going to be okay. I want to run back over here now, and I want to get rid of these large files. And in this particular case, that was even in the wrong folder. I'm also working on my update for this week, but that's the way you do it. I'm going to just delete that, get rid of that. Okay. Now back to Premiere Pro. Okay, it's going to be pissy about that because I just deleted them. It's just going to offline them all. We'll come over here and we're just going to clear that out because we're done with our AVI tours for now. That'll just keep the project a little cleaner and easier to manage. Alright, so let's put it all together. I'm back to my media browser here, and I have this Spinning World intro in a project template folder that I've established, and you can see the contents of it here, and I'm just going to import that. Once that imports, it brings in all of the contents of the Spinning World. So let me pop up one level here. You can see there's titles. Those are just some title templates that I use, and then here's an actual folder that I call Spinning World. Then this is the sequence. We can pop it open. Let me drag this out of the way real quick. And so you can see here's my timeline sequence for that Spinning World intro. Here's my kind of standard base. I put this in front of all my videos, or most of all my videos anyway. So I've just brought this folder over here that shows the parts of the video that we're seeing here in this timeline sequence. And so starting here at the bottom, this is my music bed. And then I have this time-lapse stars. You can see here that I have it sped up. This is a time-lapse that I shot. If you look right up here, let me bring these icons up a bit bigger so you can see that a little better. So if you look here, you can kind of see the time-lapse that I shot with my GoPro camera one night out in the Arizona desert. Then coming up the sequence line is the Blue Marble JPEG. Let's come over here. Oops, that's not what I want. There we go. Let me get this out of the way. Is the Blue Marble JPEG. Now, the projection of the image is important in the way that I apply the special effect to make it look like a globe. And so this is a spherical projection. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'm using a sphere to make it look like a globe, so I want a spherical projection. This is just in the public domain. I found this on Wikipedia, and it was a public domain image with Creative Commons reuse, and so it's fair to use this. And then here's my titles. And so let's run over here and let's bring this timeline back here. We'll move this out of the way and let's play this one so you can kind of watch this play. Alright, so we'll just stop it right there. Premiere, like many editing applications, has layers that you can layer on top of each other, and it depends on where they're at in the layer as to where their visibility is. And so as we go up the stack here, my base layer here, let's turn all these off real quick so you can see, is my time lapse. Okay, and so if we just scroll back and forth in that, you can see the stars are moving. There's some jets crossing the sky. And then let's turn on Blue Marble. So Blue Marble is masked, and all the mask is this thing right here. This is a title, and it's just an oval that I've set up as a mask. Okay, then what you do is on the Blue Marble JPEG, you apply an effect. Let's come over here, and you do what's called a track matte key. Apply that effect to this. Then you establish the layer you want the matte to come from, which is video layer 3, or video channel 3, I should say, which is our mask I just showed you a minute ago. Okay. Now, also, what's going on here is if I let's just make that none for now so you can kind of see over here what's going on. You can see my mask here, if you will, right? And that's because that row is visible. Let's turn that off. You see this bubble here in the middle? That's done by applying the Spherize special effect in Premiere Pro. You change the size of the sphere by adjusting the radius, and you can do that by keyboard commands, or you can just grab it and you can just pull it and kind of see how it's changing there. That was at 508. So I'm going to just change it back to 508. And then you can set the center of the sphere. Kind of see how it's moving it back and forth. That was at 4096, which just happens to be the center of this particular image that I have selected here. And then I have applied a motion function, an offset function I should say. And you do that by setting keyframes. And so you can see here that I have a keyframe at the beginning of the video. I have auto save turned on, so that catches me every once in a while. And now if you watch this timeline here, you see this center here is moving really rapidly. Let me play that for you again and watch right over here. Okay, so that's the image moving across the sphere, and that's what makes it look like a rotating globe. Or we got to turn on the track matte key, and so we'll just turn that back to video 3, and there you go. Okay, there's also some keyframes with respect to position and motion, so that's how I get the Blue Marble to move across the screen. So you see these here are keyframe position markers, and as we scroll through the video again, watch this change over here. So what that is that's moving it up, and then it brings it back to the center. At the same time, it's changing the zoom scale. You see the zoom scale now, there's 105%. And then this zoom up is done by changing and putting a keyframe on the Blue Marble mask, and we're going to index back to this first keyframe. You can see this is our starting point, And that's basically our ending point. And from that point, it basically continues to expand off the screen. So that's pretty much how it comes together. I know that's complicated, so let's review it real quick, okay? I'm going to zoom up here a little bit just so we can see the tracks a little better, actually. And one thing I'd forgot to mention was the titles, and we'll cover the titles. They're really easy here towards the end of this little segment. But basically what we've got here now is we've got our time-lapse stars, and that's the first layer. Then we've got the blue marble, which is just the JPEG that I've selected, and we're going to move it around by setting keyframes. Then we have a mask that hides all of the background of the blue marble that hasn't been spherized. Remember, if we come over here and we just come in here real quick, and let's just turn this off so you can kind of see what we would see if we didn't have the mask. And we'll pull the cursor forward a little bit so you can see. So you can kind of just see the mask is just hiding all of the area of that image we don't want to see. Alright, let's come back in here and turn that back on real quick. Alrighty. One thing I noticed when I was running this just a second ago is that my time-lapse stars doesn't completely fill the frame. And so let's come in here real quick and fix that. And so I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to just bring this up until it fills the frame. That looks pretty good. And now I know there's some cool color and light at the bottom of it. There it is. And so I want to bring that up. And let's just set that. So I've just moved it up on the y-axis and then I've expanded it a little bit so it fills the frame. Okay. Then now we've got the blue marble, so it's a basic JPEG that we have started by spherizing, and the size of the sphere is going to be dependent upon the size of the image and a couple other things that are going on here. You'll just have to experiment with that. Track matte key we've already talked about. I've set an offset on the center of the image itself so it moves around. And then we're also moving the image up here by changing the X and Y axis and the scale of it with individual keyframes, and you can toggle between those keyframes as you can see here by moving between those keyframes using those arrows. You can see here, here's my zoom out, so it zooms it out to the corner, and then my zoom in, and so it zooms it into the full screen. Then we come down here, and this is kind of funky. I noticed this too, and I wanted to show this to you guys real quick. So you come in here and you kind of see this little bit of that flash of the background. And that's because of the crossfade. And so all I need to do there is I need to just come in here and let's get the crossfade. Come on, get it. And then I'm just going to shrink that crossfade down. Let's zoom up so we can see what's going on. I'm going to pull that crossfade down to as small as it can be. And that's 2 frames. Okay? But it gives you a little bit more smooth transition between, as you can see here, the outer globe and the inner globe. And actually, given that, I want to take this and let's move him up just a little bit here because we can kind of see where he needs to be. That's pretty good. Maybe let's go up to 160. That's pretty good. Okay. Let's now go back and rewatch that. Yeah, that was pretty good. A little fast, so let's come out here so you eyes get a chance to get adjusted. Here's our blue marble. Then we spin over to this. Oh, got a little bit of a skip there. We'll go fix that in a second. Alright, I think you get the idea there. Let's go back and let's look at the titles real quick because those are really pretty easy. And so basically as we come in here, if you scroll your cursor across, you can kind of see the first title here, and I'll just pop it open so you can see it. And obviously that's my opening title. And then here's the subject title, and then today I come in here and actually I fixed this in a different version of this, so let's fix this one here real quick. I found that I wanted to be able to move things around, so I'm just going to copy that with a Control-C, and I'm going to set that out there. And now let's come in here and let's clean this up. Get rid of the extra lines. We'll get rid of this today because we won't need that subtext. And then what we're going to do here is just completely change this to how to, okay. So now what I like about this, and I thought I'd save this, oh I know why, because I'm over in the effects tab and it has a different windowing. We won't talk about that. We'll just go on with this. Now I can take and position this and get it where I kind of like it. And let's take this one and come down here and set this one here. You get the idea. All kinds of controls and all kinds of funny things you can do there. That's all good. And so now we have our title. I still don't like that little skip, so we're going to fix this little skip right here. And there we go. And so what this is I forget what they call this tool, the cut slide, whoopie-doo. But that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so let's come out so you can kind of see what I did there. And I just kind of fixed that little sag.
So there you go. That's how the spinning world intro goes together in Adobe Premiere Pro and Google Earth. And a little bit of ingenuity on my part, I'd like to think. So thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them down there. I'll be sure and get to them. Also be sure and give me that thumbs up. Those are always appreciated. And then don't forget to subscribe. We've got a lot of great videos coming your way in the very near future. But until we get together again, peace.